everyone, and welcome to The Mindful Musician. On this channel, we explore the strategies and tools that help us become more aware of our inner world as musicians and constantly evolve into the best version of ourselves, alongside becoming able to function successfully within a group or a band. I'm Cosmin, guitarist, singer, professional educator, and martial artist from Bucharest, Romania, and in this video, we'll explore 5 books that have helped me and some of my students become better musicians and evolve as human beings by expanding knowledge, perception, and providing actionable tools that we can use in real life. For each book, I will state why I found it valuable, how it changed my perspective, what I began practicing after reading it. So let's dive right in. The first book is called Zen Guitar, written by Philip Toshio Sudo. Zen Guitar is a book that takes a philosophical look at playing the guitar and what it means to be a guitarist. Its most interesting and unusual aspect lies within the fact that it is deeply connected to Far Eastern philosophy and concepts that appear in the practice of the martial arts. So it's pretty obvious why I loved it to pieces, and while I'm aware that it could turn off some people who aren't necessarily attracted to the martial arts, it covers a broad range of wisdom that can only be acquired through a lot of practice over a span of many years. It's like you're talking to this old Asian master who kind of knows how to become a great musician and he just shows you the way, but you must be the one to walk it and draw your own personal truths on this path. Now, the books I'm talking about aren't going to give you the secret exercise or practice routine because there is no such thing. There are tons of exercises, methods, and practice routines which only give you content or at best ways to improve your technical skills. Beyond that lies the path to becoming a great musician or guitarist by gaining insight over the aspects described in this book and applying them in your playing in your own way. So what this book taught me is the what, as in what is important to pay attention to in order to become a better musician or guitarist and to even discover your own musical personality. It changed my perspective by constantly reminding me that becoming a better musician, or whatever other profession for that matter, is all about following a journey instead of arriving at a destination. This is described in a circle-like path based on the martial arts belt system, meant to showcase your stage of the journey. It starts with white belt to black belt, black belt to white belt, which could easily be seen as the graph depicting the 4 stages of learning. Unconscious and incompetent, which is white belt, a stage in which you don't know what you don't know and you can't do anything. Conscious and incompetent, white belt to black belt, the stage in which you know what you should know but you can't yet do it. Competent and conscious, black belt. In this stage, you can do and you know what to do, but it takes your effort and attention. Then, as you transition towards the next stage, your conscious attention is getting less and less involved. Unconscious and competent, white belt again, the beginner mind again, who just does without having to involve the mind. What I started practicing was paying attention to the elements included in each level and observing them in my own playing, writing, and patterns of thinking and behavior. Each level is filled with amazing stories and parables which will definitely change your personal perspective. I totally recommend it regardless of your level as a player, and it's a great tool for teaching as well. Next is The Inner Game of Music by Barry Green and W. Timothy Galway. As you might have guessed, the book is about how to think about and approach playing music and music practice. The book starts with an overview of the Self-1, which is S1, and Self-2, S2, aspects of our thinking. This is the, let's call it, improved perspective I got by reading this book, and while it doesn't necessarily conform to the popular left brain, right brain, and other ideas from psychology, S1 and S2 are simply a conceptual tool to help describe the ways in which the incredibly complex human being is wired and programmed. Self-1 is the rational, analytical, judgmental self, while Self-2 is more holistic, body-centered, and emotive. The book shows how both selves are essential, but each has its place and role. Our culture focuses much more on S1, while the inner game of music teaches us ways to bring out the strengths belonging to S2. One of the aspects I found valuable in this book was the importance given to awareness. Awareness not only as a musician, but especially as a teacher, and the teacher's role in evoking deep awareness in students by avoiding the do this approach and adopting the be aware of approach. Other valuable things: exploring one's reasons for listening to music and wanting to play music. Developing the necessary awareness to listen. I can't stress this aspect enough. The majority of beginners I've had to deal with, and a lot of the advanced players as well, play with their eyes instead of their ears. Learning how to deal with obstacles when playing or learning, as your attention can be easily drawn to what is not useful in these processes. Learning what to focus on and how to practice in order to become more expressive as a player. Techniques for letting go. This refers to getting into a trance-like state in which playing and performing occurs from a place of unconsciousness. There is no control from S1. Some people call it getting into the zone. One important practice that I got out of this book was learning what to pay attention to when playing my guitar in terms of becoming more expressive, so that I could show and teach it to my students in a way that they can relate to and start using themselves. The book is rarely dry and pedantic and makes frequent use of real-world anecdotes to illustrate its points. Using examples like this make it an enjoyable read, and this may help the reader to apply these principles and philosophies to his or her own situation. It deals a lot with teaching practices on how to work with your awareness and your senses when playing and when preparing to play, and it has something for everyone. Players of any levels, parents of players, and teachers at any level, so I definitely recommend it. Next on the list, Not Pulling Strings by Joseph O'Connor. One of the few publications to apply neurolinguistic programming, which is NLP, techniques to teaching music. This book provides practical applications for accelerating the learning processes and breaking self-defeating behaviors. Focusing on the structure of musical talent, this useful book offers insight into the workings of musical minds, provides NLP methods to utilize musical memory, and uses mental rehearsal to improve skills. It is the first book that actually involves specific NLP methods and concepts to improve the processes of learning an instrument and performing in music, so it was definitely a great perspective for me as a practitioner of NLP. I found this book valuable because it teaches actual methods and practices which help me both as a player and as a teacher. Discover more effective strategies for learning music. Form deeper connections with my students. Improve both performance and teaching in a more effortless manner. And what hinders learning and teaching a musical instrument. For those of you who aren't acquainted with the NLP language and concepts, fear not. This book explains them in enough detail so that you may start practicing them as a learner and as a teacher alike. As an NLP certified coach, it was a true blessing for me to be able to gain so much insight into how an expert has applied these specific concepts in the realm of music learning, teaching, and performing. And the one thing that I immediately started practicing was to consciously use my senses when learning and memorizing and afterwards performing. There is infinite strength in becoming able to purposely shift your attention between your inner and outer visual perception, your tactile sense, your hearing, and/or exclude any of these in order to see what results you get. I totally recommend it, man. Read each chapter and then take notes on the exact practices. Start by first observing what is going on within yourself and then within your students. I guarantee that it will be life-changing. Next, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. This is, hands down, one of the most well-written personal development books out there. I think the most important aspect I got out of it was the systemic approach that can be practiced by using these 7 habits. The book states that in order to become a fully operational and strong individual, you need to build independence that can be achieved by, number 1, being proactive, which means observing and choosing how to act to external stimuli instead of reacting. Number 2, beginning with the end in mind. Find out what your values are, become value-driven, and have a clear vision. Number 3, Putting first things first, which means learning how to manage your life and work and how to prioritize. Once you are independent, it's time to learn how to become interdependent so that you may achieve greatness in collaborating with others. Think win-win instead of my way or your way. That is clearly a better way to look at things. Number 2, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Learn to listen without judgment. Number 3, synergize, which means learning how to bring your strengths within a team in order to create something that is greater than the sum of its parts. Number 4, sharpen the saw, which means training continuously. Now, this system is a general framework that can be applied to any specific field of activity, so I think that some examples are important. Be proactive as a musician and guitarist and choose to practice, to learn and to create regardless of how difficult it might sometimes seem. By deliberately choosing how you act in respect to these, you will choose to grow and evolve. Be value-driven. By taking time to understand what is important to you about making music. Why are you making music, and when faced with any situation, always remember these values. Put first things first by planning out your actions, managing them on a yearly, monthly, weekly, and daily basis. Notice your results, prioritize, and make adjustments in accordance to your goal. Think win-win by showing respect and respecting yourself in the interactions with your bandmates, students, and other people. See how you can provide value for them and make sure you are treated according to that and no less. A musician's greatest power is listening and answering to what is being played. Listen without any judgment, be it music played by other people, the music in your own head, or what others are saying to you. Only then you will be able to truly answer in such a way that you will be aligned with your values and beliefs, and also you will be an empathetic person to the one talking in front of you. Synergize by learning how to contribute in any project in such a way that your personality and strengths will be present, and at the same time you will be able to make others be heard and shine. Finally, sharpen the saw by continuously training in whatever it is that you need to in order to grow and live a happy and fulfilled life as a musician, guitarist, and a human being. Take the time to read this book and see what other practices you can learn out of it, since it's so rich. There's no doubt in my mind something I haven't mentioned will be applicable to your own personal experience and situation. Finally, number 5 is Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. This book has taught me how we can evolve constantly by simply adopting the useful mindset, stating that skills can be cultivated through conscious effort, that people with a growth mindset thrive on challenges, and that we can transition between the fixed mindset saying I can't do it to the growth mindset that says I can't do it yet. It's basically a book about beliefs, and it's been incredibly valuable for providing me with some great insights for both myself and my students. The view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life, meaning that whatever you believe to be true will eventually become true because you will work towards it, whether consciously or not. Believing that your qualities are carved in stone, which is the fixed mindset, creates an urgency to prove yourself over and over. That boils down to trying to look good into the eyes of the beholder instead of pushing yourself, and furthermore staying in the comfort zone so that you will maintain a status quo instead of learning to only compete with who you were yesterday and allow yourself to fail, to make mistakes, and sometimes even be judged by others. The growth mindset does allow people to love what they're doing and to continue to love it in the face of difficulties. This has to do a lot with practicing your instrument, for instance. Regardless of how challenging it might sometimes prove, you do it anyway because you enjoy the process. Those with the growth mindset found success in doing their best in learning and improving. And this is the exact thing that we find in champions. In my opinion, this has to do with striving to do your best in each and every occasion and looking forward to improving over and over and becoming better than you were yesterday, rather than comparing yourself to others or being unkind towards yourself just because you made some mistake. I deal with a lot of kids. Let me rephrase that. The majority of kids and young adults I'm dealing with seem to think that if they didn't get something in the first 30 seconds or so, they're not good enough, or they're meant to learn how to play an instrument. This is the fixed mindset they have learned in their family or from the environment they have been living in so far. It's It's really sad and alarming to hear these stories all around me. I tried learning how to play guitar, but I don't have any talent, I'm not good enough for this, I can't learn how to play, and so on and so forth. I've had extensive experience in observing limiting beliefs, and this book strengthened my perspective and also provided me with a kinder approach towards myself, especially because, the stories it tells on how our mindset is formed in our childhood. As a practice inspired by this book, I developed a set of questions meant to explore limiting beliefs as they come up, and thus give myself or my students a chance to reframe them into a different affirmation that might generate new possibilities instead of limitations. For instance, when a student tells me this chord is hard, I will never learn it, I could ask, think of the last time you told me that and it proved to be false. What did you do then in order to prove yourself wrong? How do you know you will never learn it? How have you practiced it so far and for how long? There is a lot to learn on beliefs and belief systems, so I made a video about them in which I included a lot of reframing techniques that you can use yourself or with other people, and also a list of the most commonly held limiting beliefs among musicians. You can watch that here. Finally, the most important thing I want to tell you before we end this video: regardless of how many books you read, the true transformation occurs only and only when you put what you learn into practice. Knowledge without practice is not power. So let me know in the comments below what's the #1 practice you will start with, and if you have suggestions on videos you'd like me to make, please do tell. This is about it for today, so if this video motivated you to check out one or more of these books and get to work, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.